Hi YouTube, it's Resale Tessa. I'm back to you today for just a quick video. I don't have a haul video for you, and I don't have an Amazon FBA shipment to show you today. I have just seen a lot on several reseller boards recently about scammers, and I'm seeing a lot of newbies that are coming in and commenting and saying, I want to sell on eBay. I just listed my first name, but I'm really scared that I'm going to end up with a scammer. And it's really starting to feel like a lot of fear mongering. And so I wanted to, kind of set the record straight about some of it um, and give you some tips for how you can avoid a scammer. Um, so this is the thing, how to avoid a scammer. Let's start with number one, be nice to people. So if you have a problem with an order, if someone says, I haven't received my item, please don't just assume that it's a scammer. Don't assume that just because someone said they didn't receive it, that they did and that they're lying to you, because you can't just assume that someone is right off the bat that they're a scammer. Um, and I've seen people commenting on guest users on eBay. If you get one of those user IDs that's just like a big long string of random numbers and letters, and they're like, that's a scammer. That's got to be a scammer. They didn't even care about their user ID. Okay, there actually are things on eBay, just like on Amazon, actually, called guest IDs, and they only work for 30 days and from the time of purchase, or as long as they continue to purchase, I believe they can actually continue to keep that ID. Um, and I could be wrong about that because I haven't used a guest ID. But I actually did have some experience at dealing with a customer and an issue with a guest ID. I had someone that ordered something from me. It's been probably over a year, year and a half, and she had ordered a game from me. It was actually missing the tokens out of it. And I don't know how I missed that, but it was one of those things where obviously my quality control was not on par. And I missed that the tokens were not in the box for this particular item. It was a high dollar item. I think I just kind of got excited because when I bought it, it was a great item. I thought, wow, cool, let's sell this. I'm going to make some money. Sold it. Um, Took some very quick pictures of the things laid out nicely in the box, but whatever. Like I said, brain fart, brain fog, whatever you want to call it. It didn't have the tokens in it. And so apparently whoever had it before that actually had probably sold the tokens originally, or they lost them, whatever, they collected them, who knows. But so I didn't have the tokens, and 30 days after the fact, I think actually, you know what, I think it was Christmas of 2016 is when she bought it. She bought it for her nephew as a present. They got it. When they opened it up on Christmas, realized that the tokens weren't in it. She contacted me after Christmas, and by then it had been 30 days. Her user ID had already expired. She actually contacted eBay, got my phone number, called and left a message on my phone, leaving me her email address. And then we began contact through email address. I tend to just kind of avoid phone calls. That's kind of the reason why I sell on eBay. I don't really kind of want to deal with people face to face. It's kind of my own little issues. I've been in retail. I've worked in restaurants. I've worked in retail stores as well. Face to face customer service is not always fun, and I've done my share of it. So again, that's kind of the reason why I have chosen eBay versus even having, say, a brick and mortar store. I just don't really want to have to deal with people. So email and messaging is my preferred way of communication. So I emailed her. She was fine with that. She actually had said, "Here's my email address. You're welcome to email me." We began, communicating through email. I knew when I went back and looked at my pictures that the tokens were not in the box. And I was like, I don't know how I missed that. I had to turn around and refund her, went in through PayPal and refunded her. So this is just my example of, don't always assume that somebody is scamming you. Yes, we do get scammers on occasion, but please do not always assume that someone is scamming you. And that also works as a buyer. Please don't assume that the seller is scamming you, because things happen. And as an example to that one situation where I actually did have an issue with a customer and I actually did end up getting a negative. And this particular situation was a set of books. It was actually a set of children's books. and it was not the entire set. It was clearly listed in the listing that it was missing 3 books out of the set anyways. And when he got it, he stated that I didn't know how to pack my items, that the box was open in his mailbox, and that he was missing some books. Well, this is the thing, okay, with this particular situation. This item was sent media mail because it was a heavy box of books. It was sent media mail, which means there's always a chance that your post office opened it, which means they may not have sealed it back. And if something was missing past that, then it may not have been my fault. Everything that was in the picture should have been in that box when I packed it, because of the way I bag pretty much everything, or pre-box it even if it has multiple pieces. So I believe that either the person got the books and maybe wanted a discount. They could actually have been a scammer. But in reality, I think because they got the box open, I think they assumed I was a scammer. Maybe they hadn't read the listing to start with and they didn't realize it was already missing books. And I ended up getting a negative for it. And there, it doesn't make him a scammer. It just makes him someone that felt he got the raw end of the deal. And as eBay has a tendency to say, it is his opinion. So, I mean, there's just not much that I could do about that. And I don't believe it was a deserved negative, but there's just not much that I can do, about that particular situation. Now, I will tell you that negative is the only negative that I have gotten on my account in probably the past, I don't even know how long I've been selling on eBay, since 2004, 2005, I think. So you can figure at least 12 years that I've been selling, almost 13. And it's the only negative that has actually been on my account and stayed on my account. Going along with the whole be nice thing, though, I did have another customer that actually did not even contact me. She didn't contact me. I don't remember what that item was about now that I'm thinking about it. Let me look at that and just to make sure that I tell you guys right, because I don't want to give you the wrong information. And I have a couple other points that I'm going to make today too, so that may help you along the way. So bear with me, if you will. Don't leave me. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. The other thing that I will say before I go on about this particular situation is I always encourage my buyers to go through the resolution center. So if they have an issue, the best thing for them to do at that point, if they're saying, I didn't get this item, it was missing items, is to go ahead and go through the resolution center, because then everything is in one place. Now, there are some people that don't necessarily agree with this, and obviously, if the resolution is closed in their favor, then you're going to get a ding on your account, which basically means it hurts your defect level, especially if you're trying to go for the top rated seller and get that discount with your listing fees. Then too many defects and you lose that discount. And so that's the reason why so many of us talk about that. It's kind of a big deal to us because they add up very fast. And there are an occasional account where you can actually get multiple dings on the same order because of different circumstances. So, you do have to look at those things. But regardless, though, this other situation, and this particular person, she did not contact me before. She went in and left a negative and said that the item was not new, that it was not new, and left me a negative. And it was an item that actually had been given to me through bulk.com. And it should have been a brand new item, but you could tell that the package had been taped up on the corner. But it looked, from where I could see, looked like everything was in the box. I just contacted her and I said, I'm so very sorry for the inconvenience. I wish you would have contacted me before leaving a negative. We take our negatives, our feedback very seriously, because this is our, our livelihood. Is there any way that we could discuss this. I said, and it was listed in the listing that the package had been messed up on the corner and had been taped. It was that way when it came to me from the store. And she said, she came back and she was very nice. And she said, I had no idea I was supposed to contact you first. And she said, I didn't realize that. How can I revise my feedback? Well, I believe when I did this, I actually had to request the revision, send her the request. She went in and changed it. She changed it to a neutral, which was not great, but it was still better than the negative. And she said the game came very fast. So she basically put a true statement in there, even though she had not been happy with the fact that the package was not new. Well, about a week later, I get another message from her. And this time she says, we open the box to play the game, and it's supposed to have 4 different colors of pieces in it. And instead of red, blue, yellow, and green, it had red, blue, and 2 yellow sets of pieces, and no, blue and green and no red, I think is what it was. But regardless, it was missing one color, and one color was doubled. So at that point, I tried to see if I could get another one for her. Unfortunately, it's a pretty high dollar game that you couldn't really replace. I tried to get it, sent her a message that I'm having some shipped to me. The order got canceled. I still couldn't get the pieces. Finally, I just contacted her and I said, I apologize. I've tried to replace this. This has just kind of been a big mess. I apologize. Again, I was just super, super nice to her. And went ahead and ended up refunding her money on it. I mean, honestly, the item cost me a few dollars and I was out the shipping. So it wasn't a huge deal. I was out less than probably $8 when it was all said and done. And she came back and said, I really appreciate you going out of your way to try and fix this. I see that you really are a good seller and I appreciate it. So in the end, I did not get the negative. I didn't get positive feedback either, but honestly, if I was looking at it from the buyer's perspective, I probably wouldn't have left good feedback on that particular transaction if I had been her, because the item, even though it was listed in the listing as there being a problem with the box to start with, and that wouldn't have necessarily been my fault, it still tainted her opinion of that transaction. And then on top of it, there was pieces missing. So it's not her fault. But it happens sometimes. It's just kind of the cost of doing business. So that is my thing, is to be nice to people and you will avoid scammers. Honestly, like, just be nice. Like, there's no point to automatically assume that someone is scamming you. Be nice. My next tip of the day, tip number 2, is to be patient with people. And this is not just about the buyers. This is also when we're talking about the shipping process, because things happen in shipping. It just does happen. And it's kind of the cost of doing business. You just kind of have to deal with some of these situations when they come up. And I'm going to give you another example. I just feel like giving you, different examples of situations that I've come across in my own business is how I, keep my credibility and show you that I'm genuine in what I'm telling you. And this isn't my direct experience. However, it was my daughter's, and she actually ordered a custom item, something that was inscribed with a message for her husband for Christmas. She ordered it through Etsy, and it was shipped to her. And it didn't arrive by Christmas like it was supposed to, even though the seller did ship it out on time, and it did have tracking showing that. And the seller said she was sorry. There just wasn't anything she could do about it. I mean, it wasn't on her end. It was already in my daughter's state. So it's not like, the seller had any say in this. And it finally showed as delivered, I think, 5 or 6 days after Christmas, maybe. Might even have been a whole week after Christmas. It seems to me, because she was actually here until New Year's. So it was probably longer than that. And it was supposed to have been delivered on like the 22nd or something of December. But it finally started moving again after sitting still wherever it was at. And it finally said it was delivered. I actually didn't say delivered. I think it said delivery attempted, even though there was somebody at the house that day and they did not attempt delivery. It said delivery attempted. Then it said it was being held at the post office. My daughter went to the 2 or 3 local post offices near her to see if it was there. Couldn't get any information on it. The item got shipped back to the seller. The seller Contacted my daughter when it got back to her. I believe she was in like Texas or something. And she contacted my daughter. She confirmed the address was all correct. There was nothing wrong. She even sent a picture of the label to my daughter to make sure so that she could look at it, make sure that there was not a problem. She was like, yes, that was the correct address. I don't understand, why they're saying, because they actually said, I think in one of the tracking things, it said there was a problem with the address. I honestly think it was just an error. I think they tried to deliver it to the wrong house, and maybe the people at the house refused it because it wasn't theirs. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many things that could possibly have went wrong there. And so the seller reboxed it, and at her own cost, she reshipped it to my daughter the second time because she had to pay for a whole new label. And the item, again, went through the process. Showed it was supposed to be delivered by 6 o'clock on like Wednesday night. My daughter was home. They never got, nobody knocked on the door. There was never any deliveries, nothing. About 9 o'clock, it suddenly switches over and it says delivered, and there's still no item. And I told her, I said, just give it a day, because sometimes they do that. Sometimes it shows delivered, but it's not really delivered till later. She waited 2 or 3 days. Still didn't show up. She was really just kind of very upset. This was supposed to have been her husband's Christmas present. And the seller didn't, there's nothing the seller could do. I mean, she's not going to remake the item, and she's already shipped the item twice. Basically took, my daughter, the buyer's word at face value, and reshipped it, even though, in all honesty, I don't think most of us even would have been willing to ship it the second time. But she did. And my daughter just figured at that point it was going to be a loss. There wasn't much she can do because the item showed delivered. There was no way she was going to get the item. She wasn't going to win any kind of case or be able to get her money back. She was just going to be out. And so she just kind of let it go and didn't say anything else about it. Well, about a week later, the item finally showed up in her mailbox. So, and I know my daughter. I know she wasn't scamming anybody. She wasn't trying to get any money from anybody. She just wanted the item because she was very excited about this gift for her husband. It was just, it had a special meaning to her. She'd had it inscribed with a message. It just had some sentimental value. And she knew that this was the only seller on Etsy that had this particular item. She was never going to get the seller to turn around and make another one and send it again because of the trouble that she'd already had. So she was just going to be out of luck. But the item did eventually show up. Now, there are definitely cases where items have not shown up and weeks later, and the customer would really like their money back, and you're going to end up having to give them their money back because they didn't get it if it doesn't show delivered. It happens. It definitely happens. But I guess this is the point, that I'm trying to make, is that not everybody that says that that they didn't get an item is a scammer. It's just not true. Like, everybody's not scammers when they say they did not get their item, or if they want to return the item. So again, be patient with people. My third point for today is actually a little tip, a little tutorial type thing on buyer restrictions. And this is something that I do on my account, and it definitely helps to cut down on the number of people that you have dealt with. This is the settings that I've had on my account the whole time that I've been on here. I keep pretty much the maximum restrictions on my account that eBay allows. And I say maximum because, okay, let's back up. Let's just make sure we make this pretty clear. So if you go to under your name on the left side of your eBay screen, there's a drop down. It says account settings. Go to account settings, and then you should be able to go to site preferences. And then under site preferences, you scroll down, there's another place called buyer requirements, and you can push show. And then you can, there's also another button there that says edit. And once you hit edit, you should have a list of requirements. And it starts out with, you can block buyers who don't have a PayPal account. This block only applies to future listings and can be disabled per item on your sell your item form. I definitely check this box and block anybody who does not have a PayPal account. Now, obviously, as PayPal drops out as the preferred provider with eBay and we go to the new payment provider, These settings may change, but I currently don't accept anything. I don't accept any sales from anybody who does not have a PayPal account. This just provides both us and them with protection. So I definitely check that box. The next one is buyers with unpaid item strikes. And he says you can block and bidders and buyers who have received, and there are a number of unpaid strikes there you can choose. You can block someone who has 2, someone who has 3, someone who has 4, or someone who has 5. I block someone who has 2 because if they have more than 1 in the last month, and again, there's a drop down there, 1 month, 6 months, or 12 months. And actually for that one, I actually have this marked as 1 month, 2 unpaid strikes within the last month. I'm going to change that to 12. Because like I said, I want this set to the maximum that eBay allows, because if eBay is allowing that, then that's basically saying those people are, that's where they are noticing an uptrend in scamming. So I want to block anybody who has had 2 unpaid item strikes within the past 12 months. And so that is checked. And then the next one is buyers and locations to which I don't ship. So I only ship within the US and I only ship through global shipping. So they can buy through global shipping because I do use that on all of my things, but they cannot use a primary shipping address that is in another country and buy from me. I just don't want to deal with the international shipping, and I like the protections that come with global shipping. It definitely reduces your risk in shipping to other countries. So let them handle that. The next thing is buyers with policy violation reports. And in other words, this is someone who has had any problems within their account, whether it doesn't really matter, what it is. Either, they may have sent profanity to another seller. They may have, engaged in shill bidding. They may have, put profanity in their feedback. They may have even tried to get money back when they, already had an item or whatever. It doesn't, whatever their reason is, they got some type of policy violations. Now, there's a drop down for the number of policy violations, and the drop downs 4, 5, 6, or 7. Again, I go with 4 because I don't want any number of policy violations. So I'm going to go with blocking them to the maximum. I don't want to wait until they get 7. I want to block them at 4. So if you understand what I'm saying, like we're not going with the maximum number, we're going with the maximum blockage, in other words. So if they have 3, then they could still slip through. But at 4, my system is automatically going to block them. And again, this says within 1 month, I am going to extend that to the maximum of 6 months. So if they have 4 policy violations within 6 months, then we are going to block them. Buyers with a negative feedback score. Block buyers who have a feedback score of -1 or lower. Now, if you're not familiar with your negatives and how that works, -1 is actually the greater number. -2, I mean, that basically means that they bought several things, or I guess sold several things, and then suddenly got feedback for those items, and they could technically have a -3 if they have 3 items that they got a negative feedback for. I don't want to have any negatives. I don't want them to have negatives at all. So if they have a -1, it typically is going to, it's going to be somebody that's scamming from the start. It basically, they opened their account just to scam. So -1 is where we go. The next one is block buyers who may bid on several of my items and not pay for them. Block buyers who are currently winning or have bought 10 of my items in the last 10 days. Now, this is basically to keep people who are trying to bid on several different auctions at one time, because what ends up happening, sometimes I think people do it just to be, I don't know, to get your items off the market. And so I just kind of picked a number in between. I don't want to block buyers who are currently winning or have bought 1 item in the last 10 days. Like if you have something that is high dollar and highly sought after but rare, and you don't want them to you only want them to be allowed to win one item over the course of a month, then you might want to choose one. I just want to keep people who are coming in and buying way too many of my items, because I don't really have multiple listings so much where people buy multiples of mine. So 10 is just a good even number for me. And it also says only apply this block to buyers who have a feedback score of 5 or lower. So again, what it's going for is a scammer that comes on the site who's buying, 20 of an item to get it off of the market, and they're using a fake eBay ID that only has a feedback score of 0 or has 1. It's going to block those type of buyers from buying those items. Someone that has several hundred feedback that is a legitimate ID wants to buy more than that, then they can buy that. They can buy more than 10. That's fine. So again, you can see how that's kind of, blocking some of the scammers. The last couple things that are on this list say apply above settings to active and future listings, because I want this to be an active blocking, and don't allow blocked buyers to contact me. So, and then there's a submit button. Make sure that you submit so that you have covered yourself from those things. Now, like I said, these are settings that I have had on my account now for years. I've never had an issue, and I really can't say that I've come into contact with a lot of scammers. I really just don't have any issue. I very rarely have returns. I might have, maybe one return every couple months. Now, granted, I mean, that's probably going to go up with your percentage in sales. So if you're doing, thousands of dollars in sales every month, you're going to have more than 1 or 2 returns. It's going to happen. And it also depends on the category you sell in. If you're selling in clothes, there's going to be more returns. If you're selling in hard goods, it tends to be a little bit less. It also depends on the item that the customer is contacting me about. If they contact me about one of my cables that they have bought, because I sell quite a few digital type cables, HDMI cables, charging cables, that kind of thing. They contact me about a cable. They say the cable's not working. They paid $7.50 for the cable, and that included the shipping. I'm just going to refund their money and be done with it, because it's not worth it to me to reship another one, worry about it. And the percentage of customers that are actually going to scam you are so small compared to the ones that are really have the issue, that I just am going to go ahead and make that person happy and move on. The next thing I'm going to tell you is to please keep good records. And that means keeping, shipping receipts for your items bought. If you're buying high dollar items like Coach purses or Nike shoes, keep the receipts, because if they want to come back and say that this wasn't, say that item wasn't authentic, or whatever else, keep your receipts. If you're using an authentication service, obviously you're going to want to keep your paperwork. Just keep records so that you have these things. Now, and I had one sale, I think last year, where the customer claimed that they didn't get the item. It was a fairly high dollar item, a little over $100. It was delivered to a post office box, but apparently it was too big for the post office box. And the person claimed that they didn't get it, but the post office said it was delivered. And they came back through PayPal, did a case. Obviously, it was closed in my favor because it said delivered. There is a chance that person can come back later and contact me, I think within a year, and they can turn around and try and contest it through PayPal. So what I did was I took screenshots of the PayPal transaction and the eBay transaction with the tracking numbers. I took screenshots of the tracking, and I just went ahead and started a folder for that particular incident and kept those things, so that if she comes back within that year and contests that particular item, I still have the tracking, because your tracking is only going to be good for about 90 days, and then that tracking will disappear. So, and they reuse tracking numbers. So it's always a good idea, if you think you're going to have an issue with that, to go ahead and get some, evidence backed up on your end. My last thing that I'm going to say to you is how to avoid a scammer. Don't try and avoid a scammer. This is the thing that I'm seeing over and over again in the resale groups, is that, and there's even a blocked buyers list. All you're doing when you're trying to avoid a scammer is you're literally cutting down on your customer base. And these people know how to work the system. So if they really want to scam you, they're going to scam you. And honestly, part of the time you may not even know. Now, obviously, if you come across a situation where an item, you shipped it to this house and you see in their feedback that they've got negative feedback several times, or people are commenting that they're always getting their item for free, or they're leaving negative feedback for someone, then you need to go to eBay and make them aware of the situation. So I'm not saying that they're not out there, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't act on it when you see one. But what I am saying is stop looking for scammers. Just stop. Like the percentage, it's just silly. It really just doesn't make any sense. And this is my thing. I want you to think about the grocery store checkout line. The grocery store checkout line has candy and gum and things in the checkout line, things that are easy for all of us to pick up on the way out the store. They have increased their sales on those items by putting them in that area. Otherwise, they wouldn't put them in that area. So I can guarantee you that the percentage that they have increased their sales by having those items in that place is by far more than the few that are walking out the store. Because by having it at the checkout line, it also has made it easier for people to steal it and get that 5-finger discount. I guarantee you that there are people that are grabbing a pack of gum and they're throwing it in their pocket, or they're grabbing a candy bar and they're throwing it in their purse and they're not paying for it. There are children that pick it up and walk out of the store without even meaning to. So I guarantee you that they have increased the loss on those items as well, but they wouldn't continue to do it and have that area in the checkout line if it was not lucrative for them to do so. So they obviously have increased their sales enough that it doesn't matter. And they're not up there standing there watching you saying, don't buy it. Don't pick that up. Don't steal that. I don't want you stealing that candy bar. They don't have time for that. Like it's a 50-cent item, people. Like you really have you've really got to put things in perspective. People are generally not going to scam you for really small dollar items. It's just not that big of a deal. They're not making enough money for it to even be worth their time to get $5 back on a cable. Why would they be scamming you? Like, you really have to put things in perspective and stop and think about it. So my final advice on how to avoid a scammer is don't. Just stop trying to avoid them and start selling. Honestly, just sell. Just do what you're supposed to be doing. Be nice to everybody. Be patient. Use the features that eBay has provided for you and keep your good record so that if it does happen, you have some evidence for yourself to back up that you've done what you were supposed to do. And honestly, like I said, I've had one person try to get their money back for something that they claimed they hadn't gotten in the last, 13 years. I've had one negative stick and I've had one negative change to a neutral. I maybe get one return every other month, and I might refund orders maybe 3-4 times a year for things that either arrived broken or didn't work. We're not talking about a huge amount of money here. And I know that there are definitely categories where the item may be worth way more money and might be, you have to refund a $60 order and you want to be a little more selective in who you're refunding to. In those cases, obviously, you're going to want to have them return it and then deal with it from there. But do not go looking for scammers. I promise you, most people are not out to scam you. So that is my advice for today. It went a little bit longer than I expected, but I figured it was still really good advice. It's just kind of been on my mind, seeing it in the groups. So that is pretty much it. So I'm just going to say have a great day, happy selling, and see you next time.